Do you understand your work role boundaries? Is that a word or a statement that you've ever heard before? It is something that is not usually highlighted to us, but it's a thing that we need to learn for ourselves, understand for ourselves, and manage for ourselves. This is defining what work is our work to do and what work is not our work to do. A failure to do this will lead you to doing other people's work, spending your valuable time doing other people's work or doing work that does not get you a praise, that doesn't add any value to you, or it could also get you into trouble because you end up doing work that is above your pay grade. A client of mine was doing stakeholder management, and one of the stakeholders told them that they needed her to respond as soon as possible when they raised a certain issue with her. So when I asked her to explain what this was about, she explained what the issue was, and when we had a discussion, we realized that this wasn't actually part of her role. This person was trying to pass off work that was theirs to my client and wanted my client to act as soon as possible when they raised this issue. This is where understanding your work role boundary is very, very important. I'm going to talk about 3 different instances. Of course, there could be more, but I just want to get you to begin thinking and to begin to actually inquire or to try to understand what is my role, what is my work, and what is not my work. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is work that is not in anyone's job description. These are usually tasks that they are not in anyone's job description, but they need to be done in order for the organization to keep moving, or for team building, just to build a team or to make sure that there's a good culture within the organization. These tasks include things like attending meetings or taking meeting minutes, organizing birthdays or keeping track on them, remembering anniversaries and celebrating them, organizing team parties or team building activities. All these tasks can take up a lot of time, but they are not in anyone's job description, and you cannot exactly say during your appraisal that I attended 10 meetings, or that I took minutes for 5 meetings, or that I bought birthday cakes for 5 different people in the organization, but they take time. So these are tasks that you need to pay attention to. I usually call them nice people tasks because you don't gain much from them. But if you continually say yes to these tasks, people ask you to attend a meeting, you say yes. People ask you to take minutes and you say yes. And if you're good at doing these tasks, then it usually becomes the default. You become the person who is always taking meeting minutes. And taking meeting minutes is not just about taking the minutes in the meeting. You have to organize them. You have to confirm them. Then you have to type them out. Then you have to share them. That takes time out of your actual work. It takes time away from your actual work. So one, perhaps you need to train yourself how to say no to some of these things. If you find that you're being asked repeatedly to take meeting minutes, or being asked repeatedly to buy birthday cakes, or to organize parties, or to celebrate anniversaries, learn how to say no. If you cannot say no, then perhaps create a roster of just highlighting how you can share this task within the organization, so that everyone gets a chance to take minutes, everyone gets a chance to organize a party, everyone gets a chance to participate in this team building activity. For the meetings, there's a thing that I started to do when people would ask me to attend meetings. I would ask them, what is my role? Why am I attending this meeting? Because then if people have to tell you what it is that you're going to do in the meeting, and especially if you're asking that, then you need to ask yourself a question, am I needed here? Or you could also ask, is this actually a meeting, or should it be an email? Should it be a 1-hour meeting, or should it be a 30-minute meeting, or a 15-minute meeting? You really need to manage the tasks so that you can manage your time and be able to do your work, because these are small things that steal into your time. You don't submit your work in time, or you find that you're having to stay at work late in order for you to actually to complete the work that is actually yours. So that's the first group of tasks. I usually call them nice people tasks. The tasks that are not in anyone's job description but need to be done in order for the organization to function, or for the team just to maintain team culture. The second kind of task are those ones where someone is trying to pass off their work to you. That is an example of what I talked about, what my client raised about this person who wanted my client to respond as soon as possible. This usually happens with people who you either collaborate with, who you supervise, or who supervise you, who want to pass off tasks to you, especially when you're either good at the tasks or they're experiencing some sort of fear and they do not want to do that task. Now, for example, if your supervisor keeps passing on work to you, that one is a very tough one because you cannot really say no. It is difficult to say no to your supervisor. But there is always a way for you to get credit for the work that you did, either by saying you did it's part of an exceptional contribution to the organization, or highlighting the part that you played, because this work was the supervisors, they pass it on to you. You took time, man hours to actually do this work, so you need credit for that work. For the people who you supervise, you really need to pay attention to when they're trying to pass off, especially conflict resolution, or areas where they are afraid and they want you to end up doing their work. I'll give an example of a time when I had handed over the administration of a certain software of an application to a different person, and I moved to a different section of the organization. The person who I had handed over to her was new to the organization, and they were new to interacting with these people. They were, of course, new to the software, so they were feeling a little bit afraid. They were lacking confidence in dealing with the stakeholders, the customers. So they kept coming to me to help them call the customers, get clarity on this or get clarity on the other. When I noticed that, I realized that this was just fear. They needed to gain confidence. How is it that they can talk to the clients? How is it that they can handle a call? How can they raise an issue? So when they came to me the first time, I actually understood what it is they wanted. I picked up my office landline, I called the client organization, and I had the conversation with them, understood what was needed, got the information I needed from them, and passed it on to this person. The person was there. They heard how I made the call. They heard how I handled the call. The second time that they came to me, I asked them what it was they wanted. Again, I called the client organization. I went about halfway what was needed, and then I handed over the phone to her, and then she completed the call as I was present. So we kind of shared. I went halfway and she went halfway. The third time that she came again, this time I picked up the landline, I called the client organization, and when the person said hello, I handed over the phone to her. And she handled the whole conversation, but I was present in case she needed my backing or she needed to confirm something. But after that, she never ever came back for support. What did I do? I transferred the skills, but I also helped her to gain the confidence to actually handle this kind of task. So that's the thing that you need to do. With that client of mine who was being asked to respond ASAP to something that was not actually her role, what we did is we came up with criteria for this kind of issues that are raised, so that by the time the person is raising the issue, they have already done some work. They're not just raising the issue without doing anything. So that's the type of thing that you need to do, to notice what is it that's making this person, especially if it's someone who you supervise or someone who you collaborate with, what is it that's making them try to pass on this work to me? And then you create an environment or create criteria for the interaction, so that by the time they come to you, they have already done their part. They have already done their work. Now, the third type of tasks or work is what I call above your pay grade. These ones are very, very tricky, and this is where you have to be very careful. You need to read the admin manual. Usually when we get into jobs or when we get into roles or organizations, we settle. We understand our job description. That's even if we take time to understand, but we gloss through. You need to understand your job description and discuss it with your supervisor. But you also need to read the administrative manual of the organization. That is where tasks that are above your pay grade would be defined. A client of mine raised the concern that she had because there was something going on within her team that several people had actually raised, and she did not know how to handle it. She was wondering how she was going to start to handle this kind of thing that was happening. When I asked her to expound on that, what we realized it was actually a fireable offense. So I told her, I doubt that this is something that is within your role to handle. Go back and read your admin manual and find out who is meant to handle this kind of situation. And indeed, when she read the manual, it was something that was above her pay grade. It was something that needed to be handed over to HR. These are usually tasks like sexual harassment or any kind of harassment, fraud, forgery, stealing, someone stealing stuff, abuse of any kind of way, violence, that kind of situations that are usually fireable offenses. When they are raised within your organization, within your team, usually it is not you who is meant to handle them. Read your admin manual and find out who handles such tasks. Is it HR? Is it your security, the people who actually do investigations? Is it audit? Because these are fireable offenses. And if you try to get involved in them, then at times you might begin to taint the evidence, whatever it is that they need, because you got involved with them. So please, if you have not read your administrative manual, take time and read the manual, or go and talk to HR or security so that you understand what tasks are above your pay grade. And as soon as it comes up, you hand it over immediately before touching anything or trying to do anything. The other kind of tasks are also, they're not necessarily what you do call them fraud related, but they're just normal administrative things that are not your role. For example, in my former organization, moving equipment was something that not anyone could do. It was assigned to a particular group of people. If you wanted to move a computer, if you wanted to move a printer, if you wanted to move a server, if you wanted to move a scanner, you needed to call a certain department and they would send someone down to move that equipment for you. You actually needed to sit and wait for them to come down with either a trolley, whatever it is that you would use, to move that equipment for you. Why? Because the people who are moving the equipment were insured against damage. If they were moving the equipment and it fell and got broken, insurance would pay for that. Now, if I tried to move a computer and I dropped it and broke it, I would have to pay for it. But see, the thing is, if I had not read the admin manual, then I end up getting into trouble because I was doing something that was not part of my role. So small things like that are things that you need to understand. Take time and read your administrative manual to understand what are my work role boundaries. That is something that is very, very key to help you not to get in trouble. To get in trouble by doing work that's not yours. So that I've talked about just 3 different instances or 3 different types of work or tasks that may be outside your work role boundary. Is this something that you've ever thought about, understanding your work role boundaries? Or do you find yourself spending so much time in meetings, or spending so much time taking meeting minutes, or spending time tracking anniversaries so that your actual work, the actual tasks that are yours, end up suffering, or you end up spending so much extra time at work trying to complete your work? Or do you find that you do not understand what your role is and you keep getting into trouble because you keep stepping on other people's toes because you're doing work that's theirs? If this is a problem that you have had, or if you need support with help with understanding this, there is a link in the description of the video. Reach out. Let's see how we can work together so that you can begin to understand, define, and manage your work role boundaries.